It's safe to say Mick Cronin's Bruins, much better than last year. Top to bottom.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxheimer. Thanks for making this your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, your team every day. And hey, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season off with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With new customers, you can place a $5 bet, and you'll end up with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Where we start today is this UCLA team that took on Rider 85-50 the final. They defeated the Bronx out of the MAAC, hailing from New Jersey. All right, this is the new day and age of UCLA basketball. Gone is last year's ugly offensive spurts, the weird defensive lapses, the weird ways the Bruins would lose. They're not young. They can go out, and Mick Cronin is going to try out 11 guys, and by the time they show probably any sign of weakness is when they go to the 12th, 13th, 14th guy on this team, some of which got some playing time last year, right? Like Brandon Williams, who didn't play. Devin Williams got minimal time. We didn't even see the freshman Eric Freeney. The depth was on display for this UCLA team, and it was a sight for sore eyes. But I'm going to start with this. That was maybe a B- performance. And I'm sure Mick Cronin is going to be much tougher and harsher with his post-game comments about the team after the fact. This is being recorded before the comments, before his post-game presser. So this is what my thoughts are. UCLA is legitimate defensively. I do not like how they played three-point defense. And that comes on the heels of Rider going 5 for 20. Because every single time in the first few games, whether it's the scrimmage closed door, the exhibition, or in this game, they've allowed one guy to get hot from downtown. Tonight it was Weeks Jr. for Rider, and they couldn't stop him. Rider had some open looks. They're just not good enough to take advantage of them, and they were able to keep up with UCLA in the rebounding department, despite UCLA shooting 52% and Rider shooting 32%. But what do I mean about this depth? Cronin played 11 guys, 7 minutes or more, 10 guys, 10 minutes or more. And this is a game where you're wondering, why are so many starters? Why are so many contributors out there late for this UCLA team? Well, it's because Cronin wants to redshirt the likes of Brandon Williams, Devin Williams, Eric Freeney, right? Because UCLA is going to have a lot of blowout victories in the month of November and a couple in December prior to that couple-week stretch where they take on North Carolina, Arizona, and Gonzaga. They're going to have a lot of blowouts in the other games beyond the New Mexico game. And that still could be a big win for UCLA this upcoming Friday. He doesn't want to burn these red shirts. It's going to be a way for these players to earn minutes and showcase the depth for a full 40 minutes that UCLA can play with. All right. UCLA led in points by Tyler Bilodeau. 18 points in 22 minutes, 6 boards, and he showcased the ability to score where UCLA just couldn't do so. Whether it's back to the basket, hit a jump shot from the free throw line, he just extends UCLA's elbow range, elbow extended baseline jumper range at the 4 spot, or what he's kind of playing is somewhat of a small ball 5 spot. Eric Daly Jr. only played 21 minutes, got in a little bit of foul trouble. I think if he didn't pick up that 4th foul, Cronin might have let him get more run time. In the end, Daly Jr. was the early scoring guard for the Bruins. 9 points, 8 boards, couple assists, no turnovers. He was the lone Bruin in foul trouble, and he looked impressive and uber athletic for UCLA in this game, including hitting what I believe was the first UCLA 3 of the season. Then you had Dylan Andrews, who took a while to get going. It seemed like Dylan had it as a mission early in the game when he had some threes, some contested threes, some he had to force at the end of the shot clock. UCLA's returner that is getting significant time. He forced some of those three-point shots to say, hey, I got to improve three-point stroke. And he hit a couple, 6 assists, I like, 14 points on better than 50% shooting. I love Dylan Andrews with the baseline jumper. That is his bread and butter. 27 minutes, 6 assists, no turnovers. That's going to make Mick Cronin very, very, very happy. All right, Kobe Johnson, the dude that Mick Cronin has been literally salivating over his UCLA debut, a USC Trojan turned UCLA Bruin. Well, he shot 5 of 9 from the field, scored 12 points, hit a 3, 8 rebounds, had 3 assists, and when you open his stat sheet on the box score, he also had 2 steals, but was wreaking havoc defensively. Like, it was clear how much of a defensive standout he is when he's on the court. Then you also have the likes of Sky Clark, who is somebody who can go off, didn't take a lot of shots, but he actually led UCLA with assists in this game. 7 assists, did have a couple of turnovers, a couple of miscues with some players, and that's going to happen with this UCLA team. A lot of new faces, all wanting to figure out how to run a Mick Cronin offense, run his tempo, not turn it over. And the Bruins, probably one of their better scoring guards that they got in the portal, got as a newcomer. He can score better than Dylan Andrews. I wouldn't have had him as the guy that would have more assists than Dylan Andrews in game 1, but he had a quiet scoring night and still played a lot of minutes, hitting a 3 later in the game. Then we saw Trent Perry get 12 minutes. He's going to hit some time. It looked like Trent Perry was very nervous to play offensively. All these guys played free and loose defensively. Free and easy defense. They're like, let's go, let's go. I think the team has to get much better at defending the 3. And Cronin's like, we're going to force so many turnovers, get so many deflections. That heart and hustle bone UCLA had a couple of seasons ago for the most deflections, or whatever Cronin calls it now. They had that. They only forcing what I think on the stat sheet post game says 13 right or turnovers felt like so much more. It felt a lot more. So the defensive intensity was clearly seen when watching the game. It's felt when you just see how Rider was clamped up. And this is the same Rider team that almost lost to a D2 in their exhibition. And you can't read too much into it, as much as I like to hype up the exhibitions, the scrimmages. This is still not the best of the teams UCLA is going to face. Probably not the best of the mid-major teams UCLA will face this season. Only time will tell. The Bruins turned 13 turnovers into 18 points off turnovers. They were +7 rebounding. They got second chance points. And hey, what was some of the things UCLA could do? They could stroke the 3 ball. 34%? That is a lot better than what UCLA could do last season. A lot better, with 10 made threes. This UCLA team, on a bad night, if they shot 33s, you're like, uh-oh, not a lot of these are going in. Tonight, UCLA missed quite a few open threes. Bilodeau missed 2 or 3 open trays. Dylan Andrews missed a couple. But there are a few guys like Lazar Stefanovic who came out and drilled 2 threes off the bench in his 17 minutes. And with a reduced role, I think Stefanovic will play much better. And that's not to say he can't play 35 minutes, but when he's not asked to do the bulk of the scoring, he sits and makes his open threes. He's going to be that much more dangerous. Sebastian Mack, 12 points off the bench in 24 minutes. He was playing late. He looks healthy. He looks well improved. He wasn't doing a lot of olays, although he did gamble, I think, on a couple of steal opportunities. 12 points, 2 boards, and he showcased what I thought was an improved 3-point stroke into a 3. The guy who shot the most threes, Dylan Andrews, is probably the guy I wouldn't think you would want taking the most threes in this game. If you take away the 3 for 10 from Johnson, Dylan Andrews, if you actually add in Bilodeau too, you take out their 3 for 13 for those 3 in the starting 5, the shooting the 3 ball. UCLA is actually 7 of 16 from downtown. That's a really good percentage. If you take out the misses and jacked up trays from Johnson, Dylan Andrews, and Tyler Bilodeau, some missing some open shots, I think some of those will fall. 85 points at a B- performance? Man, that's just a sight for sore eyes. This team on a B- performance last year would have struggled to win this game by 20 points against Rider. All right? They probably could have even easily made this one a barn burner, last year's team with the freshmen and the lack of scoring. But yes, they're maybe not going to be as star-led, but they are deep, they are dominant, but there's still a lot of things to figure out, which we'll talk about next on Locked On UCLA. Our fans and our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby. It's a way of life, and it takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or agonizing second overtimes or more, which is why they've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot, special flavor called Fan Fuel, which is made for the super fans like us, the fans who are the first in the parking lot, last to leave. We see you. All right? So who was the guy that gave us some of the Fan Fuel this week? The moment when Kalen Moore made a fantastic diving, stick-with-the-play interception to win UCLA the game against Nebraska. That was the one that gave me fan fuel and believe, oh my goodness, Deshaun Foster has got this team rolling. All right? 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. So whether you're prepping for the tailgate, getting your jersey ready, the game to-do list is so long. You get the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot to help keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel for the week? Whatever it is, do with a 5 Hour Energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com. Shipped nationwide. Cruising on into the second segment for Locked On UCLA. All right, what didn't I like? Well, I thought William Kyle III, with his 5 rebounds, the UCLA defensive stalwart out of the Summit League, 3 block shots, 5 boards, only earning 11 minutes. I think he should be on the floor more. But seeing how he plays offensively and how athletic Daly Jr. is and how lethal Bilodeau is offensively, I can understand why Cronin was a little slow to play with Kyle III in this game. All right, I think that's part of the reason. And when you heard Cronin in the preseason talk about why his best defensive 5 is not the same as his best offensive 5, William Kyle III is not the same offensively and athletically on the offensive end as Eric Daly Jr. And what I mean is not by who can throw it down, jam it for a big-time slam dunk. It's more who can be more crafty. Well, Daly Jr. can hit a 3. He can drive to the hole. He can kick it out, get boards. William Kyle had some highlight reel blocks against Ryder in the second half. And that's how deep this UCLA team is. They're up 18. I thought they could have been up more. And that was with Weeks Jr. hitting a bunch of threes early with his 15 points in the starting lineup for Ryder's squad. I thought UCLA could have been up more if they hit more threes, didn't allow one made 3. Could have been up close to 25-30 if they played a perfect first half against the Bronx. And yet here they are. They weren't struggling to score like they were against the mid-major last year. They didn't need an epic performance by Dembona, who's now with the Sixers. They don't need an epic performance. Because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 guys, 5 guys I'm impressed, 6 guys I'm impressed with, maybe 7. I don't know. I could go up and down the list, and they all impressed me. I've sat here and maybe a Diamara with this 10 minutes. He looked vastly improved. Still needs to work, but that's a weapon now when he wasn't exactly a weapon, slightly a liability last year. The big question mark, though, is the one player that played less than 10 minutes, who is your biggest three-point weapon. Dominick Harris only took 1 shot, had 4 rebounds in 7 minutes. How is your transfer from LMU only getting into the game when UCLA has a 25-point second-half lead? What is going on with Dominick Harris, right? And I haven't heard anything from Cronin about this at this moment. That is just something to keep an eye on. That is what the coaching staff has talked about, the guy who can come in and hit 3 straight threes and change a game. And what I'm thinking is kind of watching Harris play in those first 7 minutes, maybe still trying to get the groove, right? He came in late having to finish summer classes at LMU, couldn't bond with the team like the rest of the squad could, whether they were early entries, early enrollees, just being on campus so much earlier. Dominick Harris did not get the benefit of that full summer until he finished his classes to get to UCLA. And I wonder if that's just the after effects and he's someone who can come on late, or if Cronin, he's just in the Cronin doghouse and he's not playing Cronin level defense. And until you do that, and unless UCLA's down 15, he's not going to put you in the game. All right. The other thing is, why aren't Brandon Williams, Devin Williams, and Eric Freeney getting in the game in a UCLA blowout? Well, Cronin has so much depth. He needs to see which guys he can separate into a closing 5. Who will be in the starting 5 next line? Who is going to play these games in the crunch time, whether it's New Mexico Fullerton, Boston University, or then when they start playing the big dogs in December, what's it going to look like? Needs to use these games as a, hey, effort, intensity, to showcase to the rest of the Big Ten, the rest of the country, yeah, this is a very different UCLA team from a year ago. Hence the beauty, the ups and downs, the draws of the transfer portal. Mick Cronin doesn't get the highest rated class in the transfer portal, but I think he got the most depth and had the best recruiting from what he needed in the transfer portal, right? Like Bilodeau. All they're talking about how's Bilodeau going to come out and be a baller. Came out and got 18 points. He could have had 20 if he played a full 30 minutes. Kobe Johnson showcased his defensive prowess, could score, distribute. He was really good. He played the most minutes for UCLA. And then who else? Sky Clark, a calm, easy 20 minutes, leads UCLA in assists after being the Louisville leading scorer. All right? 4 of the 5 guys in the starting lineup for UCLA came from the portal. And some of their better players for UCLA are seeing reduced roles from last year's team. But the reason why you're not seeing those 3 guys in play, the Freeneys, the Williams, Devin and Brandon, he doesn't want to burn these red shirts. And he's been clear about it. Unless he needs to, he doesn't want to burn those guys when it comes to red shirt years. And I know you can only play a certain amount of games, a percentage. UCLA will have a lot of victories. You're going to be sitting there. Why is Dylan Andrews why are these guys, maybe not Dylan Andrews specifically, but why is it Dominick Harris and Sebastian Mack on the floor with the Diamara in the closing 5 in a 25-point game? Because they're that deep that any other team they would be starting the backups, and the backups would be it would be much worse. But UCLA's backups could be next game starters, who could be next week's bench players, who could be the guy hitting the buzzer-beating shot with 25 points to go beat an Ohio State who just took down a top-tier team tonight in Texas for a big signature Big Ten Conference win on the opening night of college basketball. I didn't like UCLA, the fact that they missed 5 free throws, but it was one missed, it seemed like, by 5 different players. The Bruins, they were a little sloppy offensively. In the beginning, they looked rough offensively, and then once they figured it out, they're like, oh, we can hit some threes. Once they started moving the ball, getting some open looks, the UCLA Bruins relaxed and then dominated. Now they'll get a bigger test, a stiffer test against New Mexico coming up. We'll just see how much of an increased role William Kyle gets, as he is extremely athletic and uberly talented on the defensive end. Hence the Conference Player of the Year defensively for the Summit League Defensive Player of the Year. Maybe he gets more minutes. Does Sebastian Mack, is he a key 20-plus minute guy off the bench? Or is he going to crack the starting lineup if Sky Clark is going 1 for 5, or if Dylan Andrews is jacking up 1 too many threes? And then when will Dominick Harris, one of the country's shortlist best three-point shooters in the country, and he's not contributing to a UCLA team that made 10 threes on opening night? Okay, interesting. Now, it is going to be unique. UCLA, I think, is vulnerable in the post to rebounding by bigger and more physical teams. They're going to be vulnerable when it comes to teams who have an elite scorer or a team that can shoot. I want to see what that team looks like after UCLA held a Rider team that went, 4 for 11 in the first half to 1 for 9 from 3 in the second half. One player's gone off from downtown in each of the 3 games, scrimmage, exhibition, and real. Cronin's got to clean that up. This team's got to clean it up. And this is not something we could say last year. They got to clean it up. They won by 35. It's a B- performance at best. That's the glory of this season. That's what makes it so much better than last year. It's just, oh, goodness. We'll wipe it away. This team will be so fun to watch. And you're going to fall in love with all the 11, all the 14, all the 15 guys on this roster, from starting leading scorer to the walk-ons. This team, I think, is going to win over the UCLA Hearts. Just like the UCLA women won over, I think, my heart in terms of this team's going to be good. They're gritty. And they won without not only their starting point guard and arguable best player, most important player in the court, without 2 elite talented players, and beat a top 15 team while doing it across the literal globe. We'll talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can get $5. You get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app, it gives you everything you need to know. Live bets on the NFL, all in one place. You get a hunch in the middle of the game. Check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all in the same place where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets once again if you win your first $5 bet. So if you're a new customer, go check it out. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, nothing can be complete without talking opening day college basketball, without the team that had the much tougher matchup, had to go much further, and is testing the depths of their roster already on opening day. For us, it was a morning affair for Corey Close and the UCLA women. They took on a top 15 Louisville team coached by Jeff Walz, who was led by Olivia Cochran. And the Cardinals, I thought, pretty much impressed me. All right, this is a team that's only a couple years removed from a Final Four appearance, something that UCLA has never achieved in the NCAA era of women's basketball while being sponsored by the NCAA. They're just trying to crack through and get to that level. And Louisville's already achieved that. The Cardinals are not as good as UCLA is, but they made UCLA work, and I think they're very talented, and I think they might be a top 12 team. You know, quite a few teams did not look good. I watched that USC Ole Miss game. USC played extremely sloppy. Like, they did not look good. It was just, I don't know where Juju's got 15, 16, 20-plus points, and then they blew a 15-point lead to Ole Miss. And if Ole Miss doesn't throw the ball away 30 times, USC, who turned it over nearly 30 times in the game, USC probably should have lost that game. And they're lucky to have won that game, which is maybe better for UCLA's resume in the Big Ten that USC doesn't lose on national television in front of a big audience playing in Perry. But the sneaky better game was UCLA, where these two teams, I thought, played a cleaner game. Louisville in this game had 14 turnovers. UCLA ended up having 22 turnovers, but it just didn't look as sloppy in my mind as USC. Maybe that's the blue and gold bias. And another thing maybe I'm giving UCLA credit for in this win, they didn't play with Kiki Rice, who apparently was out with a shoulder injury. UCLA did not have the likes of Charlize Ledger-Walker. She is still recovering from that knee injury she suffered in the game against UCLA earlier in the 24 calendar year, which she led Washington State practically single-handedly to a win in Pauley Pavilion. So you have your best player on the roster, 1A, 1B with Kiki Rice and Lauren Betts. But Kiki Rice, with the ball in her hands, is the engine that gets this UCLA offense humming. And then Ledger-Walker, who I think would probably be Corey Close's second option, at least to handle the basketball, still not available, not ready for game time. The Bruins go with the true freshman Elena Arnesalo. They went with the true freshman in the starting lineup against a top 15 team across not just the country, the globe, and UCLA comes away with the win where they're looking a little sluggish. They started slow. Louisville was up at the end of the first quarter by 5. UCLA holding on in the second, holding on in the third. It was back and forth, quite a few lead changes, and then they just eventually surged away in the fourth quarter to a 66-59 victory. What did I like about UCLA? Well, Lauren Betts is Lauren Betts, right? 18 points, 13 rebounds, 4 block shots, a steal, and 5 assists. She is just dominant on 9 of 12 shooting. All right. That is just somebody who is going to dominate. And how UCLA was able to steal her from Stanford in the transfer portal, I don't know. How did Stanford not utilize her? I don't know. I wish we got that Lauren Betts Cameron Brink matchup. I wish we could have gotten UCLA Stanford before Vanderveer retired. We just won't. So it won't be as heated eventually when UCLA plays Stanford at some point down the line, hopefully in Lauren Betts' career. But single-handedly, Lauren Betts is just a weapon. Just the way she can use her footwork. And if UCLA can improve on their entry passes to the post, probably could have had a 20-point night. But there are some poor entry passes. Louisville was double, triple teaming her, forcing her to kick it out, forcing her to move her feet, getting bumped while catching the pass, trying to hold her pivot foot, still sticking it in the hoop. Great job. And that's without a great passer in Kiki Rice, a double-digit scorer, a sneaky three-point shooter. And UCLA, they could struggle at times to shoot the three until all of a sudden, Tamea Gardner, a former foe turned UCLA Bruin, got red hot from downtown. 5 of 7, a sneaky three-point shooter who came off the bench to give UCLA 15 points in 25 minutes. London Jones, who can go 6 for 11, or tonight go 3 for 8, 3 for 9, got herself 13 points, but hit some clutch threes and was asked, I think, to maybe do a role that I think would not be exactly what you'd want your shooter to do. Handle the basketball, run the offense. When you'd rather have her step back, hit a three, I think she hit one of those step back dagger triples at one point in the game. At halftime, she hit her three to give the Bruins the lead right at the buzzer, getting herself going. What else did I like? Oh, yes. Let's not forget, coming off the bench, Janiah Barker, 19 minutes, 8 points, 7 rebounds, uber athletic, and can do things that UCLA did not have off the bench last year. The Bruins starting 5 was Betts, Jones, Arnasalo, Jaquez, and Dugalich. Dugalich did not provide much offensively, 15 minutes in a starting role, and I wonder if she's going to be the spot starter, and then you switch her with Barker, or do you give Gardner her minutes, or does Corey Close have a set starting 5 for now without Ledger Walker, without Kiki Rice, and then push players back? I'm not sure. But we saw limited minutes from Kendall Dudley, Avery Kane in this game. But Alina Arnasalo, I was impressed by the youngster coming in and making things happen for UCLA. In this game, UCLA had four freshmen on the roster, 3 which saw time. Kendall Dudley had 8 minutes, hadn't got her first career collegiate points yet. Kane listed as somebody who got into the game. But Arnasalo come in and, hey, by the way, we need you to run the offense against what's going to be an aggressive Jeff Walz on the other side that can try and steal a top 3, top 4, top 5 win if he beats UCLA in Paris without Kiki Rice, without Ledger Walker. That was a huge role for Arnasalo, who looked sluggish, had 6 turnovers. Mind you, Lauren Betts herself still had 6 turnovers offensively. But when you have 7 players hacking at you, it feels like she's going to cough up the ball a couple of times. Arnasalo did look sloppy, and UCLA had to switch things up with who brought the ball up, like we saw with Barker, like we saw with London Jones, in a role that might be not something she's going to be utilized in later this year. I'm not sure I've seen anything written about the severity for Kiki Rice, but that was a gritty win. That was a back-and-forth win where the lead changed a couple of times, and a team, I was proud with the way they played. The lead changed 13 times. The score was 12 4 times. They scored 23 points off the bench. And mind you, they started this game off with trailing before the ball was even tipped because the Bruins were given a technical foul for a delayed starting lineup entry to the scorer's table. All right, they got issued a technical. So before the ball was even tipped, the Bruins were already trailing, playing a little sluggish. UCLA 34% from 3. In the first half, UCLA did not hit a few threes. They were 8 of 23 overall in this game from downtown. I'm looking at the stats, and they have UCLA. They just have some of the stats wrong. I'm looking at the stat sheet right now because it says 8 of 23, 4 of 13. I'm like, what? That doesn't look right. UCLA, I liked how they played. I really did. I was a little startled when I didn't see Kiki Rice in the starting lineup and she wasn't dressed. It was a little worrisome. But the way they were able to handle this away from home, far across the world, I enjoyed this. This was a bonding moment for a UCLA team that was shorthanded and kept Louisville struggling to shoot the basketball. All right, Cochran wasn't a big factor. Roberts for Louisville scored 21 points, hit some threes, 8 of 19. She was good. Julia Williams, 11 points. But overall, this game was about UCLA withstanding Louisville's pressure, being very sloppy, but I thought it felt like a crisper played game. It looked better to watch than the USC Ole Miss game, which was just kind of rough to watch on the ice. USC did not look that impressive, but Juju is just Juju, so she'll put in her 20 points quietly or loudly, depending on the game. And now UCLA is game planning. That is their biggest rival. You got to be in the same arena as them on opening day in Paris, France. That is what everybody's thinking of UCLA. Final Four good. The same thing as the team across the town. That is their biggest Big Ten rival at this moment, and the Bruins have to be up to the challenge. And today they were up to the challenge to beat a tough foe shorthanded, and that earns a lot of props. That is an A-, B+ performance. Yes, the turnovers need to be better. The depth shooting the basketball needs to be better. But they will be cleaned up when you get arguably your most important player in the roster outside of Lauren Betts back, maybe equally as important. Although we saw how much the Bruins struggled last year without Betts, that is what UCLA can bring to the table. And I'm excited to see what they can do and how they recover from the travel. They play, I think, Colgate next, and it'll be 6 days. What does it look like for them recovering with a long travel ahead of them? I don't know. We'll talk about it all more on the Locked On UCLA podcast. Stick with us. Football game week, football recap, everything, and more basketball games to boot. So like, comment, subscribe. This is your home for UCLA basketball, football, women's basketball. We'll talk about it here on the Locked On UCLA podcast. So like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. Get your hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.